now appears if she wants to run for supervisor again, it will have to.
Tiffany Henyard's political career in Dothan, Illinois, has unraveled rapidly amid allegations of extravagant spending and questionable leadership choices. Once a dominant figure, Henyard's influence has crumbled with surprising speed, leaving even her most loyal supporters reeling. The crisis intensified when the Democratic Party in Torrance Township opted to select nominees through a caucus instead of a primary election for the first time in decades. This decision significantly raised the stakes for Henyard, who, as the township supervisor, was vying for a spot on the 2024 election ballot. However, her campaign collapsed during the caucus held at the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium due to a critical oversight. Her failure to include a certified assessor on her slate, which disqualified her candidacy and dealt a severe blow to her ambitions. The caucus, led by Illinois State Senator Napoleon Harris, drew a large crowd and marked a turning point in the local political landscape. When Harris emerged victorious as the Democratic nominee for township supervisor, jubilant cheers filled the room, signaling Henyard's ousting from the race. Visibly stunned, Henyard accused Harris and the Democratic committee of orchestrating the caucus to suppress voter choice, though critics dismissed her claims as desperate. While her defeat marked a significant shift in the region's political dynamics, observers are left speculating about the future trajectories of both Henyard and Harris.
Experts right here in North Township. You should also say that she flunked out because her name is not.
In a dramatic display of defiance and division, Tiffany Henyard stormed out of the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium, surrounded by her most loyal supporters, as accusations of corruption and illegality echoed in her wake. Her ire was directed squarely at State Senator Napoleon Harris, chair of Thornton Township's Democratic Committee, whom she accused of orchestrating an unfair and legally dubious caucus process. Declaring, "You didn't run any of this the right way legally," Henyard's fiery outburst signaled her refusal to concede defeat quietly, underscoring her determination to challenge what she viewed as an unjust outcome. The chaotic caucus marked a turning point in Henyard's tumultuous political career. Her formal removal from the Democratic ballot as the nominee for township supervisor was not just a procedural blow, but a public humiliation before a packed audience of constituents and adversaries. For Henyard, the night represented far more than a loss. It symbolized her diminishing political influence and exposed fractures within her once powerful base. Supporters rallied to her defense, alleging voter suppression and procedural manipulation, citing abrupt rule changes and venue limitations as tactics designed to undermine her candidacy. They painted the caucus as a calculated effort to oust Henyard, a narrative she and her camp embraced as they vowed to fight on meanwhile. Harris and the caucus organizers defended the process as lawful and transparent, emphasizing that the decision to hold a caucus, though unprecedented in Thornton Township for decades, adhered to state regulations and mirrored practices used elsewhere in Illinois. The overwhelming result in Harris's favor was seen by his supporters as a decisive repudiation of Henyard's leadership, which had long been dogged by allegations of financial mismanagement and self-serving governance. Henyard's defeat raised questions about her next political move, with speculations swirling about a potential independent run or even a pivot to a right-leaning platform. While such a strategy might showcase her tenacity, it risked further splintering her already divided base. As a polarizing figure who built her career on controversy and resilience, Henyard appeared unlikely to retreat quietly. Yet the evening's events underscored the formidable challenges she faced, not only in retaining power, but also in rebuilding her political identity amidst a growing list of scandals. For her detractors, the caucus outcome was a long overdue reckoning, a clear rebuke of Henyard's embattled tenure as both mayor of Dothan and supervisor of Thornton Township. To her supporters, it was a political ambush that highlighted the entrenched divisions she had come to symbolize. As Henyard left the auditorium, flanked by a mix of allies and skeptics, it was evident that the battle was far from over. The night's events set the stage for her next confrontation, cementing her as a leader defined by resilience and defiance, even as those same qualities continued to court controversy. Tiffany Henyard's recent political defeat has reverberated through social media and her constituency. intensifying public dissatisfaction with her leadership. Critics have seized this moment to highlight her governance failures, interpreting the loss as a clear indication of her waning influence. Many residents, already fatigued by her scandal-plagued tenure, have begun voicing their frustrations more openly, fueling a growing demand for political change. One particularly vocal resident took to social media, rallying others to demand Henyard's immediate ousting. This call resonated deeply within the community, as it became evident that Henyard's leadership was perceived not only as ineffective, but also detrimental to the interests of those she was elected to serve. Amid the surge of online criticism, a poignant quote emerged, encapsulating the sentiments of many. The more power someone has, the more corrupt they become. For countless disillusioned residents, this statement symbolized the corrosive effects of unchecked authority and the perils of political arrogance. Regarded as a confident leader, Henyard is now viewed by many as a politician whose ambition has overreached. Her refusal to acknowledge missteps or accept responsibility for her decisions has further alienated an already disenchanted constituency. The aftermath of Henyard's dramatic loss serves not only as a reaffirmation of her political shortcomings, but also as a resounding indictment of her leadership style, which critics describe as self-serving and disconnected from community concerns. For months, detractors have pointed to alleged corruption, dubious financial decisions, and poor management practices. The recent caucus defeat has made these claims increasingly difficult to ignore. Her perceived failure to inspire confidence in government or to unite her constituents has led to accusations that her administration prioritizes personal gain over addressing the community's challenges. This sentiment is widely shared online and in local discussions, deepening public mistrust and reinforcing the perception that Henyard embodies the very problems she once pledged to resolve. Rather than uniting her community, Henyard's actions and rhetoric appear to have driven a deeper wedge between her and the people she governs. Residents increasingly feel alienated not only by her policies, but also by her combative stance toward criticism and her reluctance to engage in meaningful dialogue about pressing issues. Complaints about deteriorating infrastructure, inadequate public services, and financial mismanagement have amplified the growing frustration. To those demanding accountability, Henyard's continued defiance amid mounting scandals seems to confirm their worst suspicions about her priorities. For many, Henyard's leadership represents a dangerous disconnect, an official entrenched in her own authority, seemingly oblivious to the escalating grievances of her constituents. As public outcry intensifies, her political future appears increasingly precarious. What was once perceived as resolute determination by her supporters now appears to be sheer obstinacy to the wider electorate. Her devastating loss at the caucus is more than a symbolic blow, it is a tangible rejection of her leadership, highlighting the electorate's growing exhaustion with an approach seen as driven more by personal ambition than by community welfare. Critics note that Henyard's decisions often leave constituents feeling neglected, while her frequent dismissal of public concerns deepens the divide between her administration and the people. This alienation is particularly stark following her defeat. As calls for greater accountability and transparency gain momentum, Henyard's leadership, once a beacon of hope for change, has come to represent the dangers of political complacency and arrogance. Each new accusation claims of lavish spending, disregard for procedural norms, and financial recklessness fuels public disillusionment. To former supporters, the promise of progress now feels like a broken covenant. To critics, her tenure serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of misplaced trust. As community frustrations mount, they coalesce into a resolute call for accountability, marking a turning point in the collective desire for political renewal. Henyard, meanwhile, appears increasingly isolated, her support base shrinking as each new scandal further tarnishes her credibility. For a leader who once prided herself on tenacity and resilience, the stark reality of her diminishing influence is undeniable. As she grapples with the fallout from her defeat, the disconnect between her and her constituents seems insurmountable. Her once ironclad authority now appears fragile, leaving her struggling to maintain relevance in a community weary of unmet promises and ineffective governance. While Henyard and her staunchest allies may continue to challenge the legitimacy of the process leading to her downfall, it is clear that the electorate's patience has worn thin. Each passing day amplifies the clamor for change, and the specter of political irrelevance looms ever closer. The perception of Henyard's leadership, once bold and ambitious, has shifted to a symbol of failure. And then there's Henyard, that sense of isolation. As she attempts to cling to any semblance of influence, it is evident that her political future is uncertain, and her legacy increasingly controversial. Henyard's fall from grace signifies not just a personal defeat, but a collective reckoning for a community long burdened by the consequences of her leadership. It serves as a stark reminder of how power, when unchecked and misused, can swiftly lead to widespread disillusionment and discontent. The escalating calls for accountability and political change leave little doubt that Henyard's time in office is nearing its end. For many, her departure seems inevitable, a matter of time before the community demands the fresh leadership it so desperately seeks.
That's all it took for Tiffany Henyard to come out as the Democratic nominee for Thornton Township Supervisor, and she left here.
To fully understand Tiffany Henyard's dramatic fall from grace, it's crucial to first examine her rapid rise to prominence and the carefully crafted image that initially positioned her as a rising star in local politics. Celebrated as a visionary leader, Henyard secured dual roles as both the mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thornton Township, a powerful combination that elevated her to a position of immense influence. She was viewed as a supermayor, seemingly untouchable, with this dual authority providing a platform for her political aspirations. However, her ascent began to unravel as controversy exposed cracks in her carefully constructed facade. Another extravagant allegations was the discovery of extravagant spending, including a staggering $33,000 charged to Amazon for what was allegedly intended for community purposes in Dalton. This was particularly shocking given the median income of many Dalton residents, which was far below $50,000. The USDAA says the propensity for depression has actually fallen for the last 5 years in a row due to a shortage of health care. The stark contrast between Henyard's apparent opulence and the economic struggles of those she was meant to serve highlighted the disparity between her lavish lifestyle and the hardships faced by her constituents. Once unimaginable, these revelations sparked anger and betrayal, leaving many residents feeling deceived. As more details of her spending habits came to light, it became clear that Henyard was out of touch and grossly irresponsible, leading to a deepening resentment among her electorate. For residents struggling to make ends meet, the allegations painted a picture of a leader indulging in extravagance while neglecting the needs of the community. "It's repulsive that she's living like a queen while we can barely get by," lamented one resident. Later, this feeling of betrayal fueled disillusionment, prompting calls for accountability and widening the gap between Henyard and her once strong support base. Her financial decisions became emblematic of a deeper hypocrisy, exposing the growing chasm between her promises and the self-serving reality that residents now saw in her leadership. As scrutiny intensified, the political fallout became unavoidable. The allegations not only tarnished Henyard's reputation, but also highlighted how far her leadership had strayed from the ideals she once championed. Her critics grew louder, fueled by what they saw as a core of hypocrisy and corruption at the heart of her administration. What had once been a shining image of integrity and transparency was now replaced by a narrative of greed and mismanagement. For many, the contrast between her public persona and private actions revealed a deep betrayal, shaking the trust of even her most ardent supporters. The revelations surrounding her alleged misuse of funds marked a pivotal moment in Henyard's political career, driving a significant erosion of her support base and catalyzing a shift in public opinion. Residents who once saw her as a beacon of hope for change now viewed her leadership as a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition and political arrogance. Her dramatic fall from grace became a symbol of political excess, illustrating the widening divide between the leader she claimed to be and the harsh realities faced by Dalton's average resident. The backlash was framed as an inevitable reckoning, a culmination of decisions that prioritized personal comfort over the welfare of the community. As public outrage and mounting allegations weighed heavily on Henyard, the foundations of her political career began to crumble. The same platform that had once propelled her rise became the stage for her collapse. The allegations overshadowed any of her previous accomplishments, cementing her legacy as one tainted by controversy and lost potential. Henyard's failure to address the community's needs while engaging in behavior seen as extravagant and out of touch deepened the rift between her administration and the people. The impact of her political demise was felt far beyond her immediate sphere of influence, serving as a cautionary tale of how the unchecked pursuit of power can alienate and betray those it seeks to lead. For Dalton residents, the allegations became a rallying cry for change, emphasizing the need for leadership grounded in humility and accountability. Meanwhile, the community's ability to receive effective services had been severely hindered by political infighting, which left residents frustrated and disillusioned. Essential projects had been delayed and basic services compromised as political battles took precedence over addressing the community's pressing needs. As the situation escalated, many began to question whether Henyard, the Democratic candidate for Thornton Township supervisor, was truly serving the people, or if her actions were more driven by power struggles and personal ambition. The conflict came to a head when Henyard dramatically exited the race after just 7 minutes, highlighting the high financial stakes involved in the ongoing dispute. Several parties were involved, and the failure to secure necessary permits could lead to severe consequences, including a $40,000 fine. The renovation project for Blackstone Park was nearing completion, and time was running out for approvals. If deadlines were missed, taxpayers could be left to cover the allocated funds. This situation reflected a broader issue: political gamesmanship at the cost of missed opportunities and ineffective leadership. Stephanie Wheatman, executive director of the Park District, emphasized that the expiration of grants and permits could put vital public benefits at risk. Henyard's confrontational and controlling leadership style had driven wedges within the community, deepening divides and preventing progress on essential projects. Further complicating matters, Henyard's once loyal inner circle began to fracture, with longtime allies reportedly pulling away and staff resignations fueling rumors of growing internal conflict. The FBI's investigation into her administration loomed large, eroding public trust and casting a shadow over her tenure. Although no formal charges had been brought, the investigation added weight to claims of corruption within Henyard's administration, especially as one of her closest allies, a former deputy police officer, faced allegations of bankruptcy fraud. In response, Henyard attempted to deflect criticism, accusing her detractors of waging a smear campaign. In a fiery Facebook video, she questioned why she was being targeted, accusing critics of distracting the public from other issues. She promised legal action against those she believed had wronged her, but it remains unclear whether she has any evidence to support these claims. Her dismissive attitude towards criticism only further alienated her from the public. As the controversies mounted and delays on essential projects continued, Henyard's attempts to engage with the community through organizing events and media appearances backfired. Many saw these efforts as desperate attempts to appear concerned for the community, further deepening the perception that her leadership was out of touch. The damage to her public image was undeniable, as residents increasingly saw her actions as false and contrived. At the heart of Henyard's unraveling is her aggressive, domineering leadership style, which alienated many and led to real, tangible consequences for residents. As crucial grant funding expired and community projects faltered, the deeper ramifications of her leadership became all too apparent. The fractures within her inner circle continued to grow, with longtime supporters stepping away and staff dissatisfaction becoming more difficult to ignore. Henyard's political future now hangs in the balance. The community she once promised to serve has grown increasingly disillusioned with her leadership, and her grip on power continues to slip as her scandals mount.